Why is it when it comes to Trump, even the most highly educated people say the most moronic things? I'm Joe Rapari, and this is Tab, the Truth Always Boomer.
Hello again, ladies and gentlemen. This video is not so much about Trump as it is about very intelligent people saying very stupid and moronic things. I hate when smart people use their opinions and feelings as facts and evidence. So let's pull the tab on that and see what happens. Go. Case in point, Dr. Bandy X. Lee. Let's listen how utterly moronic she sounds as she uses her opinions and feelings as evidence and facts. Cut 1, go.
Welcome to the France 24 interview. Now, what if you knew a truth about someone that harbored dangers of such magnitude that it could be the key to future human survival? And now, what if that someone happened to be the President of the United States? And what if you were expected to keep your mouth shut about it? Well, that was one of the dilemmas facing Yale psychiatrist Bandy X. Lee, who was one of the contributors of essays to a controversial new book called The Dangerous Case of Donald Trump. Now, Lee defied many of her own peers, Lee and her colleagues, arguing that their, quote, duty to warn the world about Trump's mental instability must supersede professional neutrality. And Bandy Lee joins me from New York. You're a forensic psychologist. You're also an expert in violence. Thank you so much for taking some time to be with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, Dr. Lee, I want to ask you this. The ethical question is the first one. I know you grappled with it a lot. There is something called the Goldwater Rule in the American Psychiatric Association. I know you talk about this a lot. It basically says it's unethical to share a professional opinion about a public figure unless you have personally examined them. You made a conscious decision to sort of override that rule, to supersede it. Why, and what were the compelling reasons?
First of all, if I may, I'd like to make clear that I'm speaking on my own behalf and not representing the views of my institutions, that is Yale University, Yale School of Medicine, and Yale Department of Psychiatry. As for the ethical question, in fact, the Goldwater Rule is rather complex. I'm actually a proponent of the rule. But there are two parts to it. One is not to diagnose a public figure without having personally examined them and gotten consent from them. And secondly, it is when one is asked about a public figure, psychiatrists are actually encouraged to educate the public about relevant psychiatric matters in general terms. And actually, that is exactly what the book is doing. We do not diagnose, and we try to educate the public as to all the possible conditions that could be relevant, all the situations that tie into the dangerousness that we see. When we do speak about Mr. Trump in particular, we are referring to another ethical duty, which is the duty to warn, duty to report or to warn or to protect others or the public in the case of a danger, in the case of an emergency.
Could you?
First, Dr. Moron, the Goldwater Rule is not complex or complicated. Let's take a look at what it says, shall we? The Goldwater Rule is the informal name given to Section 7 in the American Psychiatric Association's Principles of Medical Ethics, which states that it is unethical for psychiatrists to give a professional opinion about public figures whom they have not examined in person and from whom they have not obtained consent to discuss their mental health in public statements. Section 7 also says that on occasion, psychiatrists are asked for an opinion about an individual who is in the light of public attention or who has disclosed information about himself or herself through public media. In such circumstances, a psychiatrist may share with the public his or her expertise about a psychiatric issue in general. However, it is unethical for a psychiatrist to offer a professional opinion unless he or she has conducted an examination and has been granted proper authorization for such a statement. The code says nothing about encouraging psychiatrists to educate the public on all things psychiatric. It says a psychiatrist may share with the public his or her expertise in general. It says nothing about educating people about specific. She says that this is exactly what the book is doing, educating the public about specific areas of danger that we see. Well, that's exactly what the code says not to do, you moron. She's just stating her feelings and opinion in the book, along with all of the rest of her colleagues. She says, in the case of Mr. Trump, we have the duty to warn, report, or protect the public from danger. What danger would that be, Dr. Lee? Reading your book? I think so. Cut 2. Go.
Could you tell us more specifically, I'm curious about this myself, how do your contributors in the book, they found things ranging from narcissism to hedonism, fragile sense of self-esteem, lack of trust in himself. How do you detect and how do you, I won't say diagnose, but how do you detect these signs of behavior when you're not diagnosing in person?
So, everyone wants a diagnosis. It would be irresponsible to say if without having all the information. But assessing danger does not require all information. It only requires enough information to raise alarms so that we call for a full evaluation. In terms of all the possible conditions that were outlined in the book, those are we try to be comprehensive in terms of the important possibilities. But there's also a fair amount we can know about the president.
Give us a few of those. Yeah. What are a few of the signs that you've seen?
Yes, so while we have not examined him in person, we have seen a lot of behaviors in public in response to situations in real time, over quite a bit of time. So actually, these behaviors or responses, incitement, of the public, effects on the public, these are kinds of things that we actually have a lot more information on him about than any patient.
Could I just jump in, Dr. Lee? What would you say, because the word the dangerous case, the word dangerous is in there. What would you say are among the more dangerous signs that are brought up by some of the psychiatrists writing essays for this book?
Yes, the essays cover a lot, but as an expert on violence, I can tell you that previous violence shows an indication for possible future violence, and he has already shown verbal aggressiveness, history of sexual assault, incitement to violence at his rallies, endorsement of violence in public speeches, and he's shown an attraction to violence and powerful weapons, as well as he has taunted hostile nations with nuclear power. All these things are signs of danger. And because assessing dangerousness is more about the situation than about the person, he is definitely in a situation where more of this could come and actually could escalate.
We make a lot of people have comments.
She says, assessing danger does not require all the information, just enough information to raise alarm. Well, I think if you're going to raise the alarm, you need all the information. But nah, that's good enough. That information there, that's good enough. Just use that. That's good enough. She also says, we have seen a lot of behaviors, responses over time, responses to the public. Let's see. What responses would that be, Dr. Lee? Referring to your book as a bunch of crap? That sounds pretty normal to me. That's a normal response. She also says, past video or past violence shows a possibility of future violence. Oh. Past violence shows a possibility of future violence. We're going to need a citation on that one. Yep, for sure. I don't know where that's coming from. But again, just her opinion. She goes on. He has shown verbal aggressiveness, sexual assault, incitement to violence at his rallies, endorsement of violence in public speeches. He's shown an attraction to violence and powerful weapons. Taunted hostile nations with nuclear power. Well, I'm calling bullshit on those, Dr. Lee. But that was a nice anecdotal rant you had there. Yeah, real nice. Cut 4, go.
A lot of people have commented on the fact, obviously, he's the leader of the free world. He has his finger, Dr. Lee, on the nuclear button. How dangerous is that? Did you see a sign of danger of such a man having control over the nuclear codes? And what are they?
Yes, absolutely. That is our primary, most urgent concern, although not our only concern. He has shown characteristics that would make one certainly more precarious in such a position. He has shown impulsivity, recklessness, paranoia, or perceiving threat where it doesn't exist. He has shown having a loose grip on reality, where real.
Here she says the number one concern is a man like Trump having his hand on the nuclear button. He has shown signs of paranoia, recklessness, and he has shown a loose grip on reality. Really? I think the only one with a loose grip on reality is you and your cronies, Dr. Lee. Cut 5, go.
As about, and I think your words were, the larger context that has given rise to his presidency. I read that and I was thinking, there's an insinuation there that if Donald Trump is mentally unstable, as a lot of the psychiatrists here suggest, the people who elected him might also have elements of mental instability. Am I reading too much into that?
No, that's precisely the situation that concerns us about the public mental health in general, in addition to its security and safety.
Well, Dr. Lee feels that, in her opinion, the president is mentally unstable, and everyone who voted for him is also mentally unstable. You're going with that one, Doc? Seriously? So 63 million people are mentally unstable because they voted for a person. Because you voted for Donald Trump, you're mentally unstable because you think he's mentally unstable. Well, I didn't vote for him, but I'm voting for you and your cronies to be put in straitjackets and taken to the Arkham Asylum. Last one, thank God.
So Donald Trump is mad, and the madness is catching. And I suppose that there is that sort of snowball effect when you have a leader such as this in the White House.
Yes, that was a publisher. Yes, we certainly are seeing effects of mental impairment spread. So pathology is spreading as well as an effect.
And here she says, we're seeing signs of mental impairment spreading. Yep, we sure are, Doc. And it starts with you and your colleagues that wrote this book. So I want to just read some other things from the American Psychological Association and from the American Medical Association. Now, the American Psychological Association is a different organization than the American Psychiatric Association. And they state that psychologists should take precautions, that any statements they make to the media are based on their professional knowledge, training, or experience in accord with appropriate psychological literature and practice, and do not indicate that a professional relationship has been established with people in the public eye, including political candidates. When providing opinions of a psychological nature, psychologists must conduct an examination adequate to support statements or conclusions. In other words, our ethical code states that psychologists should not offer a diagnosis in the media of a living public figure they have not examined. The American Medical Association's Council on Ethical and Judicial Affairs wrote new guidelines into the AMA Code of Medical Ethics, stating that physicians should refrain from making clinical diagnoses about individuals, i.e. public officials, celebrities, persons in the news, they have not had the opportunity to personally examine. So reading all those codes, I've come to the conclusion that Dr. Lee and all of her colleagues are a bunch of fucking morons.
More news later. Take care, and as always, be safe.